Welcome to Love and Lattes, the podcast designed for women who are ready to stop settling and start living a life full of authentic love, confidence, and real connection. I'm your host, Victoria, the self-love scientist, speaker, and coach, and I'm here to help you reclaim your power, deepen your relationships, and fall unapologetically in love with yourself. So grab your tea, your latte, or your favorite beverage, and let's get started. How often do the men in your life have space to talk about health, friendship, and real connection? Or if you're listening and you are a man, when was the last time you felt strong, not just physically, but emotionally supported too? My guest today on Love and Lattes is Duncan Forbes. He's a personal trainer and strong advocate for men's health. He's also very passionate about building both physical strength and meaningful companionship. He's seen firsthand how transformative it can be when men are empowered to take care of their bodies, their minds, and their relationships. Welcome, Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excellent. So, Duncan, how long have you been a personal trainer?
I've been a personal trainer for over 10 years. So I'm currently now a personal training leader, but been in the fitness industry for about 12 years, coming up to 13 years.
Oh, wow. And just like we highlighted kind of in the beginning, you started noticing that it's not just about creating physical fitness. There's something more to this picture.
Absolutely. In terms of anybody that comes into the club, they have some surface area goals, such as I want to be in better shape. But once you dive deeper, and everybody should dive deeper, it's probably because of a failed relationship, stress with family, gets a little deeper than that. But when all personal trainers actually understand that depth, then it's better to be a companion during that journey at the end of the day.
I'm really glad that you're going deeper with your clients. I think if we can get past the, what else, what else, what else, I think that's where we can form a lot more authentic connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think it's important to be a companion for a man in this world?
Uh, for so most of my clients, I would say have been females in the past, but just recently, as I do my own kind of research and starting to try to get into men's work, I'm trying to impact more of the men's side of things. And I think it is more important than ever to be a companion for a man. Not a lot of men ask for help. It's kind of, I guess, in our blood that we want to do it ourselves, that we can solve it ourselves too. But I think now, things are changing amongst the world, especially in the US, in terms of, what women are asking for in terms of like their own health, but also in certain relationships. It's because I think men really just haven't been used to asking for help. Women have always been doing a great job asking for help, but when it comes to men, not necessarily. And it can be a little intimidating for a man to ask for help because we always want to do it ourselves. So it is important to kind of be a companion because asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but it really is a sign of courage. And when it comes to supporting a man, you know, it's also interesting because we're very logical creatures. Women, they think differently than men. That's why men are men, women are women. But in terms of, helping a man out, in terms of getting to a specific goal, they stay in the surface area, surface level of their needs. As in, Duncan, I want to look great. Duncan, I want a six pack. Duncan, I just want to hit like a personal record on my deadlift. But they technically stay there, right? For women, it's easier to get a little deeper. For men, it's a little bit harder too, because they actually don't know a little bit of that emotional capacity on how to get deeper, right? Like emotional language is different for men than it is for women too. So that is why being a companion for them and kind of apps like peeling off the layers of what a man truly wants is kind of a rewarding thing in this industry, especially now.
And when you mentioned the emotional language, could you give some examples? Like, what does that look like exactly?
Yeah, like men are, as I start diving into this side, I am learning a lot. I will have to shout out to Connor Beaton, who runs Man Talks podcast. And it was because of him and his retreat that I went to that really helped open my eyes on how to get into a deeper level of health, right? It's not just a physical aspect, it can be the emotional, but it all ends in the mental and spiritual side. So when it comes to, helping out men, again, not a lot of men really ask for help in a therapeutic setting. And when we do, it's probably a last resort when everything's in crisis and chaos. But, the old school way of therapeutic help, it's tough for a man because most of the therapists these days are women, and they ask men like, "What are you feeling?" or "How are you feeling?" Right? And at the end of the day, a man will be like, "Good, not so good," or "I actually don't understand." Maybe from my learning, it is when you tell me that line or when you tell me that story, what are you feeling in your body? So there's different approaches on how to like communicate with a man and help them really recognize either what's happening in their fingers, what's happening in their legs, what's happening in their stomachs that can help them really recognize, oh, so this is emotional language that I'm starting to understand and that I should be aware of when I continue forward with this.
No, that's a really good point. And I definitely can say firsthand, I use those questions.
Yeah.
How do you feel? And I just had a conversation the other day also with a man, and he said the same thing. It's like, if I tell you I'm good, I'm probably good, but sometimes I'm really not, but I don't know
Yeah.
how to share that with you.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Let's unpeel that. So what do you notice, throughout your male clients when you start to create this relationship, this companionship? Are you, aside from designing movements and workouts that are suitable for them, but what is it about this relationship that creates like what is it that creates a companionship? You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
what does that mean to be more than just your PT?
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good question. So, as the world evolves, as technology evolves, uh, and healthcare evolves, what is happening right now is that the world is becoming a lot more artificial,
Mm.
and we are actually, as humans, are becoming less relational. And what I mean by that is it's very easy to now start using artificial intelligence to build programs, right? It's very easy to use artificial intelligence to change a picture of yourself to look a certain way. So what is happening now is that, in terms of the service industry, it's evolving into the companionship industry, which means is that throughout the journey of health, whether it is emotional, mental, or physical, humans need to understand that it's important to fail at something to then build perseverance to keep on going. And, these GLP-1s and these artificial intel and nothing against GLP-1s, right? It's just, is it being distributed to the right population? It's being mass distributed that a lot of people that really don't need the GLP-1s are taking it right now. And even if they have like a small weight loss goal. So that is an interesting thing that's happening amongst the training industry right now. Like, how do we intercept these clients, coach them that, okay, if your doctor has recommended it, this is great, we'll continue it. Do you want to be on this long term? Because if people are starting to see results after taking a pill, right, it's going to make them think deep inside of them, I only need to take a pill to just get success. Like, I don't necessarily need to do these other things, which is important for my health, but I should still do it. Right. And then you also have like all these artificial intelligence programs right now that are distributing kind of not fake pictures of people looking a certain way. And they actually don't look like it, but it's being exposed consistently to the younger and younger population. And that's the challenging thing too. There's like different ages of boys now that are thinking that they should look a certain way to get attention, right? And that if they don't get it that fast, then do they need a pharmaceutical drug to partake in that? So when it becomes to being a companion with a man or a boy, right? Like, how do you be that figure, that either that father figure, that, grounded figure for that person to just talk with and not talk. at them, but talk with them, but also talk to them at the same time. Most men need direction, right? Like and that's why sometimes therapy doesn't really like help for them. Like they need like, what is this? What is that direction? And maybe for like some men, they just need to express, right? But what I learned from my men's retreat, which I bring to my clients, is men do a great job explaining, but we don't do a good job expressing. And that's where women really come into play, right? Because they do a great job expressing, even like if they feel a certain way after the smallest thing, like they do a great job expressing how they feel.
I like the way you said that. Expressing versus explaining.
Hmm.
So what drove you to create this kind of series like let me listen, see? It's the AI. So what drove you to want to serve and become a companion for your clients versus just, in like we live in this world where most people, just like the development of AI, they want that like shortcut. Like I want the fastest way. And there are businesses out there who really are just, like maybe their passion is like to build wealth and like that's cool, do your thing. But for you for specifically, you're like, I'm here to act as this companion, to host retreats, to develop these relationships. Why?
I would say a couple of personal reasons, right? One, I've been noticing the more people that I train, the more people that are going through a divorce or about to get a divorce or recovering from a divorce. I do think the idea of marriage is different, the way that is valued and looked at these days. Ultimately, I would like to be married, build, provide, protect, and lead a family. But I think it's a little bit harder than ever. And like my own personal relationships too, like every relationship that I had, like it was definitely a growing experience that I definitely want to be at a point where, I know I'm confident, but I want to have the right tools, right? And the right language for my partner, future partner, to make them feel safe. At the end of the day, like love is obviously not enough, because the world just makes it harder. The world just really makes it harder these days. Um, and as a man, the danger to a family is no longer, coming through the front door. It's actually seeping through the internet, right? Which a lot of people don't really understand. So that is why when I go into like this men's work, like how do I build that emotional capacity, the emotional depth and competency to be a better partner in the future? But also, how do I actually do that with others at the same time? Because I hope to be that person who Connor Beaton was like to me and the other rest of the men, someone who not only changes relationships but saves relationships at the end of the day. I think the quality of your life really depends on the quality of your relationships.
This is true.
Hmm.
And what do you believe to be a good quality of relationships?
It really depends on every individual, but everybody would obviously say communication, which is what I totally agree. But I would also say trust at the end of the day, you know. For some odd reason, I think like love is just, in terms of passionate love, like that can definitely come and go, but calm love is something that not a lot of people realize is the most rewarding and fulfilling that anybody could ever have, right? We definitely look, even, what we watch on TV these days. It really, everybody loves the passion, the drama, and the intensity of it too. But is that even healthy at the end of the day for a man or for a woman, right? So I would really say communication, trust, uh, and this might sound a little different, but grace. I think grace would really be is an undercover most important thing because people are living longer. And if people are living longer, that means that our values might slightly change over time. Our belief system might change over time, which means that our partner will change over time. So every decade, like there's going to be mishaps in that relationship. Coming from a guy's perspective, do we have the right tools to make sure that we are still growing with our partner at the end of the day? And for women, right, I mean, I can definitely understand their point of view, depending on who you talk to, but does our partner have that emotional depth to grow with us? I personally believe in growth, and that's one of the reasons why I get into the health industry, right? It is about being the best version of yourself, whether you can lift over 300 pounds on the deadlift, whether you can run the quickest mile in the world, right? It's just being the best version of yourself. But everybody, when it comes to having a successful relationship, marriage, and so forth, they'll show these pictures online of two couples sitting on a bench, right? And it looks beautiful and what everybody wants. But at the end of the day, that old couple had to choose each other every day when they got into arguments, when they got into huge disagreements, which means that if they chose each other, they eventually had grace for each other. And I think that's something that is not necessarily viewed upon, right? Or forgotten about at the end of the day.
No, I like that. I don't think I've ever, from a man's perspective, I don't think I've ever seen the word grace amongst the necessities of creating that really strong emotional connection. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think, for men, it's very easy for all of us to get stubborn at the end of the day, just because of the way that we are. But I guess we hope to have a little grace from our partners, and I can't speak for all men, but I can definitely speak for some, for the people that I met at my men's retreat. And, sometimes myself, I'm going to make mistakes, but I do the best I can to learn a mistake. Because if I make the same mistake twice, then I understand that it's actually a choice. And that's a choice I never want to make.
And aside from the companionship, what do you think, what do you think it is that holds men back from creating or even expressing? Like we talked about express and explain. Do you think
Hmm.
like this like alpha mentality? Because you said earlier, like we're just, they're not used to it, they're not generally allowed. And I've read personally like it definitely kind of depends on like their past and like growing up and relationships there. But what
Yes.
do you think it is that they might be struggling with?
It would be a lot of things, but from my personal studies, I would say that the first thing is having an absent father or having a father that's more of like a friend. Right.
Mm,
And that's it's interesting because if you have an absent father, there are so many wonderful single moms that they are doing the best that they can to grow their kids in a boy. But there are just some things that a woman can't teach that a man does at the end of the day. And it could be in terms of like risk taking at the end of the day, right? Like I think, we've all seen those like clips of, women teach their boys to be the nice guy, but eventually, like in terms of getting like a date or a certain attention, women want something differently, right? They do. And that's okay. But when you have both a male and a female figure, I think it just helps a child grow much more obviously efficiently. Now, that is just one part. I think the other part too is it could be what is happening with society these days. I think the awesome thing is that a lot more women are becoming more independent financially. There was just a report out that single moms are the biggest population to buy homes than any other like than couples or than like single fathers or even just like men itself, which is a beautiful thing, right? But there what is happening is a lot more men are dropping out of education at higher rates, high school, and dropping out of like college. They're most likely to be in jail, right? Than women are. And there hasn't been enough support groups for men than there are for women. What I've noticed though in the past 2 years is that if you look on the internet or just go to certain networking events, they're starting to become more men's group, which is great. But it really is kind of like a new thing that is going on for men. So yeah.
No, those are great. I think those are great things to keep in mind. And even when you mention the statistic, it's like, what's the opposite end of that? You know, if we
Yeah.
have a lot of single women like killing it, then the counterpart is that means there's a lot of independent men like having a hard time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can dive like so much deeper too, you know, and I can definitely understand that. Is there like a hidden gender war right now that's going on? And I don't know. I think from where I'm from in New York, people are able to kind of discuss rather than to instigate with each other when it comes to these conversations. But I definitely do understand that different areas of the US, it is totally different, you know? So I get very, I try to be compassionate right off the bat and empathetic when I do discuss with like people from different parts of the US. But there is a little bit of confusion on how a man these days can kind of bring themselves into a woman's life when a woman kind of has really taken care of themselves because of the financial stability that they've had for themselves, right? Like because of the freedom that they've had, which is like a beautiful thing, right? So how can a man, you know, be part of that family or build a family like that? And it used to just be put a roof over their head, right? But it's no longer that anymore. Like things have changed in relationships and even in marriages that as Americans, we try to find solutions to everything. But at the end of the day, it's just these are just paradoxes that just need to be discussed and have better questions to lead upon.
I like that, and I agree. I think that's a very powerful statement. I do. I think about my parents' relationship and like what their dynamics look like, and then even growing up and going through my own journey and recognizing I was like, these are completely different times. We're in 2025, and it's wild. And sometimes my heart goes out to even the younger generation and the new kids coming in and having to either unlearn or they're exposed, as you say, to the things that are happening like on our phones and laptops that depict in some ways like not even real. Like that's not a real relationship. It's just it looks pretty, but
Yeah,
the couple you don't see much actually is the one who's thriving both together financially and mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
yeah. I think you know, if you even want to dive deeper with my information and my resources come from Connor Beaton, Esther Perel, Lewis Howes, that definitely bring on amazing speakers of it too.
Mhm.
And Esther Perel in her in one of her books, I forget which book it was, but it was discussing about it ever since like 1979 when California was the first state to allow, you know, more of women's rights on getting out of the marriage. And then a lot of other states followed with that. So that was the start of a lot of women being able to leave a marriage easier, which then means in terms of the marriage itself, the bar becomes higher for it, for women to stay in. So then after that, right, now combine that with like the financial stability that women are starting to gain for themselves and having more expectations of a marriage. This is why like a lot of men are, okay, where can I provide or where can I be the man that a woman wants to be, you know? So the question will always be, right, are men not stepping up to the plate or
Mm.
are women asking too much? And there's no right or wrong answer, or I would start the conversation and maybe at the end of the conversation, whoever I have with, maybe there's a better question that I should be asking or that we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah. I think there's always some kind of like provider-esque like role for the man that they feel like this is what I am meant to do. And I feel like that, like you said, like nowadays it's just becoming a lot harder. It's like, well, she's been on her own for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, how can I add value? So, what would you recommend folks who are listening who might be entering into a relationship or they're in one and they're trying to establish that I wish to be the provider and maybe my partner has been providing for themselves for a long time, what do you recommend in that kind of scenario?
For a guy or for a female perspective, or just in general?
I would say, so for this instance, since we are focusing a lot on men, so let's say you're a man and you're like either you're pursuing or want to pursue or in a relationship, and this is something that you're thinking about because it's that provider mindset.
Yeah, yeah. When a lot of people don't realize, but for young men, what they know about being an attractive man or what they believe to be, and this is what's like from a survey, was basically how many women that they sleep with, which shows their, dominance, right? Or their attractiveness. And if a lot of boys think like that, it carries on to their adult life, which is the saddest thing, right? And the reason why I'm bringing that up is like what should men think of it of right now, right? It is none of that stuff. Whatever we believe to be a successful man or to be a wanted man, it is totally different these days. The most important thing is to be authentic. I totally believe. Because at the end of the day, you should not feel like you want to be wanted by every woman. You would want to be a best fit for one person because that is more rewarding and fulfilling and a lot more significant. So the more authentic that you are, I think that would be the first stepping stone. And then in terms of pursuing or something, I mean like the 10 best questions that you can find on Instagram or something like that, right? Like I would think about it like this. I would just think of asking the right questions, right? Like what makes you feel safe, when you're with a partner. Like, or how can I be a better friend? It depends on whether they're in a relationship or like starting a relationship. So, and these are questions that I wish I kind of asked in my previous relationships too, you know. But so I would say authenticity and communication, right? And those are simple things. But I will also, and this is going to probably be an interesting thing to say on the podcast, sexual discipline, which kind of leads into like what I talked about before, right? Like a lot of men, when you ask them, like, what is their love language? A lot of men who are not that at that emotional capacity will say touch. Of course, they're going to say touch, right? Because like what we feel intimate is that physical intimacy. But how do you be intimate without being intimate? Which is a question that all men should really ask themselves. And
Mhm.
that kind of leads back into the values of trust, communication, compassion, grace, and so forth, like that. Right? Like, if men, especially, do not have that sexual discipline, then it will not make their woman feel safe at the end of the day. If men are using sex as a transaction in a relationship or a marriage, from what I've learned, will not last long. So that's probably like my third thing that I'll just say.
No, I think those were excellent points.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate that perspective. This has been really great, Duncan. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're here.
Mhm.
Are there any, as we close out, are there any lasting remarks or pieces of support you'd like to offer our listeners today?
What I would just basically say is that with the experience that I've had with men and at the retreat is that there are men that are trying. They just haven't found the right support system yet. And they wish that they didn't wait until the last minute or under crisis to then ask for help. So there are men out there that are trying. And I would like to take the charge and the lead of that.
Thank you, Duncan. This was so wonderful.
Awesome.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning into another episode of Love and Lattes. And we'll see you in the next episode.